Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Kabir Considers. In this video, I'm going to react to 20 things only Americans do and think are normal. Now, I love these kind of videos just because they paint a real picture as to, the real differences between the US, the UK, and sort of other developed countries. I did a video fairly similar to this maybe 8 or 9 months ago, so quite a while ago, and I found some of the entrants really interesting, like things like pledging allegiance to the flag. Like here in the UK, I've never done that. I've never seen it done. It's not a thing, and I'm kind of in two minds about it. On one hand, I think it's kind of cool to sort of display patriotism, to display pride in the country of which you are from and live. But on the other hand, I can see the arguments where people say, oh, it could be some kind of indoctrination. Maybe there's kids who don't want to pledge allegiance, but they feel pressurized to do so. So I can see both arguments there. This video, I'm hoping it's going to have a lot more different examples of things that you guys do there that we don't really do here. So yeah, it's going to be a fun video. Let's do it.
Good call on these outfits, dude.
It's the only call. You know what I mean?
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 20 things only Americans do.
Get a ton of shit.
For this list, we're looking at common beliefs and practices in the United States.
Eating peanut butter straight out of the jar?
They don't need to be exclusively American, just something that Americans are known for. If there's something uniquely American that didn't make our list, unite in the comments to state your picks. Number 20, refer to the USA as America.
America, America.
Outside of the United States of America, referring to the country as America is much less commonplace.
I'm not sure about that one. Here, I think people call the USA America, and then maybe a close second might be USA, but I think most people would just say America. It's just faster.
After all, there are 2 entire continents called America, comprising like 35 distinct nations. Referring to only one country on one of those continents as America too is really confusing for anyone who doesn't live there.
From this day forward, it's going to be only America first. America first.
Calling it the US, USA, the United States, or just the States is much more common in the rest of the world. Even so, everyone still calls its residents Americans, which isn't confusing at all.
You can't say it, but you know it's true.
Number 19.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with that first entry. I think a lot of people here use just the word America. But then again, in Germany or France, maybe it's the USA.
Throw gender reveal parties.
This is a big one.
Cultures the world over have traditions to prepare expecting parents and celebrate the expected birth of a child.
Thank you so much for throwing me this baby shower, girls. I feel so welcome to the neighborhood.
Of course!
However, Americans have really taken the concept and run with it. An entire industry has been built around baby showers, as well as their modern relatives' gender reveal parties. Emerging in the 2000s, the latter have become infamous for sometimes absurd levels of showmanship. Some over-the-top reveals have been responsible for injuries and even disasters.
Really?
They remain somewhat controversial, with many people, including Americans, not really getting why they're often made into such big deals.
I don't know why, but I'm gonna cry.
Oh my gosh, why are you gonna cry?
Because I'm just really happy for you.
You look like it.
You look like you're happy.
Number 18.
Yeah, I don't know. It's harmless fun, I guess, but to throw a party just to reveal the gender of a kid, it feels a bit OTT sometimes. But then again, whoever wants to do it, hey, do you.
Experience huge bathroom stall gaps.
Right this way, sir.
Yeah, this is a good one.
God.
Every country's restrooms have their own quirks, like different sinks and toilet bowls. The US is known for having a high volume of water in their bowls and large gaps in their bathroom stalls, both under the door and between the door and the walls. Visitors can be taken aback at the lack of privacy. Some hold that they're designed for easy cleaning or construction. Others that it allows one to check which stalls are occupied, although occupancy indicators on the locks can do that too.
Maybe so you can see if there's someone in there.
Isn't that why we have locks on the doors?
Well, as a backup system, in case a lock is broken, you can see if it's taken.
A backup system?
It might also make it more difficult to get up to no good in there. Whatever the case, public bathrooms in the US are built for speed, not comfort.
Would you just sit down and go to the bathroom already?
Number 17.
Yeah, I think the discouraging of, undesirable behavior is probably a big one. Maybe they don't want, people like sleeping in there, stuff like that. But I can see the reasons for it. But yeah, I would be discouraged from using one of those toilets. I probably wouldn't ever need to, I guess, unless I was desperate and I couldn't hold it at number 2. But yeah, I'd rather just, because the gap is so huge. Like someone could stick like their arm like with a camera up there.
Have pharmacies that sell groceries.
Yeah.
In most of the world, pharmacies sell exactly what their name implies, pharmaceuticals. While you will see tangentially related items like grooming products or hygienic things like toothbrushes, pharmacies don't usually carry food or toys. But in the US, that's much more common. The country is all about the all-in-one experience. Not only will dedicated grocery stores have pharmacies built in, but pharmacies will also carry groceries. Granted, the selection isn't always great, but if you're desperate for milk and the grocery store is closed or you just don't feel like crossing the street to get there, you can get some. While most of the world still limits drugstores to drugs and self-care products, we have a feeling this one might catch on. Number 16.
I don't think it'll ever catch on here because of space. Like pharmacies here tend to be very, very small just because space is at a premium, especially in like big cities like London, Birmingham, Manchester. So I just don't think they've got the space to stock food products. But countries that have a lot of space, maybe like France, Germany, potentially it could catch on.
Vote before they can drink. Worldwide, the age at which a person can legally drink alcohol is most commonly 18. The age usually considered to be adulthood, though it is even earlier in some countries. The voting age on a global scale is also generally 18, for similar reasons, although of course there are exceptions.
The Voting Rights Act of 1970 lowered the voting age to 18 for national elections, and the 26th Amendment made the change to 18 permanent for all elections.
And 18 is where it has stayed for the past 50 years.
However, the United States requires young adults to wait 3 years after being able to vote before legally being allowed to drink
I find
at
this
21.
Incredible.
This was enacted during the 1980s to prevent alcohol-related driving accidents.
This law has been an abysmal failure. It hasn't reduced or eliminated.
They're still going to drink. You're not going to stop anyone from drinking with a ban. Like, I find it incredible that you can, I think the age of enlistment in the US is 18, similar to here. I think here it's actually 16 you can enlist in the army. Like, you can enlist, go fight in a war, potentially lose your life for your country, but you can't get a drink at a pub. I just find it ridiculous, guys. Come on, convince me otherwise.
Eliminated
if
drinking.
You can.
It has simply driven it underground, behind closed doors, into the most risky and least manageable of settings.
Absolutely.
While it helped in the short term, ultimately, it hasn't really stopped teenagers from drinking.
It's never going to stop.
The result is that many people, both inside and outside the U.S., question the logic of why an 18-year-old American can decide who forms the government but not get buzzed.
The reality is everyone drinks before they turn 21. That's why when you go out for your first legal drink, you have to react with that photo surprise
Start
like you've
coughing.
never heard of alcohol before. Ooh, what does this alcohol taste like? Oh, it's unusual. Oh, this is true.
Number 15.
Yeah, and all you do when you ban something, you create a mystique around it. Like, you're going to have kids like just, downing pints of vodka and stuff like that just because, they're not allowed to do it. Like, if you introduce it to them like responsibly as a parent, this is vodka, it's 40% alcohol, have a tiny sip of it just to see what it's like. I think you get a better outcome.
Get free refills. One of the biggest differences between American restaurants and the rest of the world are their drink services. Most American and many Canadian restaurants and other establishments will offer at least one free refill of a non-alcoholic drink.
Refill. Free!
Where is it going?
The idea is that because of the low cost of drinks, particularly fountain soft drinks, offering a refill won't hurt the establishment's bottom line, particularly if drinks are not the primary source of income. However, the idea has been slow to catch on in the rest of the world, and it's nowhere near as consistently offered. Some countries have raised concern that a practice like this can lead to an increase in obesity. Number 14.
I personally am a fan of the free refill concept, but I agree that if you make something free, you're going to have more consumption of it. And these soft drinks usually have a ton of sugar in there. Maybe what they could do is, swap out like the Coca-Cola, the Fanta for like healthier versions, I guess, and then make Coke and Fanta non-refillable. So then you're encouraging the drinking of the healthy alternatives, but that probably wouldn't work, would it?
Tip service personnel.
Here
All
we
right,
go.
everybody cough up some green for them.
It was inevitable. Here we go.
Come on, throw in a buck.
I don't tip.
You don't tip?
No, I don't believe in it.
While the concept of tipping waitstaff or other people in the service industry is known worldwide, few countries have embraced the concept to the degree the U.S. has.
Labor movements declared the practice undemocratic, and anti-tipping legislation was enacted across several states. But restaurants and rail operators like the Pullman Company embraced tipping because it allowed them, among other things, to hire recently freed slaves without having to pay them.
Many workers, particularly in the restaurant industry, rely on gratuities to get by, in part because laws allow managers to pay sub-minimum wages to tipped workers.
But that should be illegal. How can it be legal that you pay sub-minimum wage? I just don't think it's right, like I've been reading like people going into like McDonald's and stuff and, using the machines to place their order and the machine asks for a tip. It's like, you got to admit, it's getting out of control, isn't it?
However, in various other countries, tipping is seen as insulting. They're just doing their jobs after all.
Each year, Americans spend $40 billion on tips. That's more than we spend on foreign aid and more than we spend on gambling. And like gambling, it's not entirely clear that tipping makes any sense in the first place.
While some countries' workers certainly appreciate it, it isn't expected like it is in the U.S. Mostly because employees are paid a high enough baseline salary that they don't need tips to survive.
Restaurant owners still pay their servers less than minimum wage, turning what used to be a bribe into an obligation that makes the end of every meal suck.
Number 13.
I remember reading an argument. Someone left a comment in a previous video that if you eliminate tipping, the price of food goes up in the restaurants. I mean, the price of food has been going up like crazy anyway, and you still have to tip. So, I mean, why not just change the system? Let's say mandate a minimum wage of, let's say, $20 an hour for restaurant staff, and let's see what happens. Or do you guys disagree with that?
Obsess over the military.
And I think I speak for the rest of the WWE. I certainly speak for myself. I would like to say thank you to all our men and women who choose to don the uniform of the United States military.
The American military is probably the best in the world, as it should be, since it's also one of the best funded militaries in the world.
The best funded.
The U.S. spends several times more on their military than their nearest competitor, China. What's more, there are more than a few American citizens who have a higher than average fascination with their own military and its culture.
I thank you as your commander-in-chief because you inspire me. Your willingness to serve, to step forward at a time of war and say, send me, is the reason the United States stays strong and free.
While other countries certainly appreciate their troops, you don't, see as many people wearing camouflage as a legitimate fashion statement. Likewise, you don't see movies made elsewhere that glorify the military to the degree that the U.S. does.
Do me a favor. Tell my children I love them very much. All right, you alien assholes! In the words of my generation, up yours!
I need to see this movie again. I've not seen it since I was like a kid. What is it, Independence Day? I need to put this on the reaction list.
Part of the American enthusiasm is certainly rooted in patriotism. Still, it may also be a reaction to an increasingly anti-military sentiment that has popped up over the last several decades.
No war, okay? No war, okay? Oh, well, here you go, boys. These will help you protest. It's good to see that you care about peace, boys, okay?
Number 12, use red plastic cups.
Oh, yeah.
If you've ever seen an
cups.
American movie where a college party happens, chances are you've seen characters drinking from red cups. These red plastic or solo cups are everywhere in the US. The cheap drinking containers are a favorite at parties, both for their durability and their ease of use in party games. While they're also handy for crafts or gardening, they're most famous for their intended purpose. However, the rest of the world either doesn't have the United States party culture's emphasis on kegs or lacks the same distinctive cups.
Yeah, they've definitely caught on over here. Like most videos or Snapchats or whatever that you'll see of like a house party in the UK, you probably will see red cups. Like I think they've just become sort of like the de facto cup because of what we've seen on like US shows and, you know, movies and stuff.
Originally manufactured by the Solo Cup Company. At most, you might see them at a novelty American-themed party. Number 11, wear shoes inside.
Yeah, this is a
Taking
weird
off
one.
your shoes before you enter a home, or at least in the entryway, is pretty common etiquette in many countries.
Don't do that. Why'd you take your shoes off? So I don't break your nose.
And while many Americans do prefer to keep footwear off their floors, it isn't a hard and fast rule like it is in other places. Often it will depend on whether the person has carpeted floors or hardwood floors, with the latter considered easier to clean. Since it's not considered the norm, though, asking guests to take off their shoes indoors can come across as rude or fussy, and so is often avoided.
But I mean, if you've got a carpet or a rug, like even if it's wood flooring, I just think there's a chance that even if you wipe your shoes on the mat, you're going to bring dirt into the house. So just leave the shoes at the door.
Number 10, eat peanut butter as their go-to spread. Peanuts are grown and eaten in many parts of the world. But it's the United States and Canada that do most of the peanut butter eating.
Peanut butter man now, eh, sir?
Yes, I believe I am. I thoroughly enjoy this peanut butter.
A lot of countries see it as a niche or even unpleasant taste.
No,
Others have
peanut butter is delicious.
a spread that is more culturally ingrained, like Nutella. The USA cannot get enough of peanut butter, though, consuming over 1 billion pounds of it annually.
Wow.
January 24th is even National Peanut Butter Day. It's a cheap source of protein that most American children grow up eating, so it's no wonder that it's a comfort food for many of them. Number 9, work too much. Americans are workaholics, at least compared to basically every other country in the world. The majority of Americans work more than 40 hours a week.
Why do we do this to ourselves? Well, the conventional answer is that this attitude towards work makes the American economy the envy of the world. America is a hectic, turbocharged system that builds, destroys, rebuilds, all at warp speed.
They also tend to lack many of the things the rest of the world takes for granted, like paid holidays, as well as sick and parental leave.
Yeah, like my little brother, he's a consultant at like a fairly big sort of financial company. And he, out of interest, spoke to someone in the US branch, and they make like double what he makes, but they only get, I think, 10 days of annual leave, whereas he gets, I think, 28. And so it was like an interesting sort of dilemma. Like, you probably get paid a lot more in the USA, but then you've got way less time off and you probably work longer hours. So it's like, what would you prefer? Like, if you could choose between the two, a better work-life balance, but less money, or the opposite?
Research has shown that happier, less stressed workers do better at their jobs. Iceland even recently tried a 4-day work week that proved wildly successful.
Yeah, I think
there's lots of other benefits to a 4-day working week. It's not just the it's not just the mental health and economy, good for the economy. It's also environmental benefits too. Evidence looks like when we're commuting less as a result of a 4-day week, that brings down emissions. Also, energy consumption goes down. So this is a policy that's win-win for the environment, for workers, for employers. What's not to like about it?
Several European countries take long breaks for lunch. While the American drive is admirable, grind culture becomes problematic when it costs workers their mental health and well-being. Number 8, make.
As much as I would love the 4-day work week, and I think it is a great thing to do, what worries me more is like a lot of people losing their jobs to AI and stuff like that. I feel like if a lot of companies get pressurized to adopt a 4-day work week, they'll just cut jobs where they can and automate them, replace them with computers. Because it's happening now. Like my first job in the law industry when I graduated was as a document review paralegal. Basically, I was just sorting documents, what's relevant, what's irrelevant. And now you can't find those kind of jobs anymore. Like the only ones you can find require like a additional language knowledge, like German, French, Spanish. Like computer programs have replaced that job. It's just gone. It's pretty scary what's going to happen in the next few years, I think.
Make small talk with strangers. Americans are known for their friendliness towards strangers, especially outside of big cities. It's not uncommon for Americans to smile at each other in passing, but their comfort with new people also extends to small talk, saying hello or even striking up a conversation out of the blue.
If you are seated in an emergency exit row, and feel you would be unable or unwilling to perform the duties listed on the safety card, please ask a flight attendant to reseat you.
In many countries, speaking to strangers unprompted can be seen as intrusive or even risky. Many Americans are masters of the art, though, often happy to chat with people they've never met about the weather, sports, or whatever else comes up in conversation.
I like that.
Looks like a carrot, honey.
Who looks like a carrot? Hi.
Number 7, casual.
I like the talking to strangers thing. But then again, if I was like more introverted, maybe I wouldn't like it. I guess it's like a preference thing on what kind of personality you have.
Own guns. In many countries, gun laws are strict and gun ownership is relatively rare. In the US, gun ownership is protected by the Second Amendment, and gun ownership is the highest in the world. Despite making up 4% of the global population, Americans own 46% of civilian-held firearms. There's a distinct gun culture, where gun ownership is celebrated or at least seen as important for personal safety. Most states even allow you to open carry.
But it's a lucky thing I had my pieces.
Your pieces.
My guns.
Oh.
Anyway, I started blasting. Bang! Bang!
Of course, the issue is extremely divisive due to the country's high rate of gun deaths. Either way, the idea of having so many guns around is a novel one for many visitors.
Guns. Lots of guns.
Number 6, put sales.
It's a very, very difficult one to talk about, unfortunately, especially on this platform. Like, obviously, I've got my own views on it, but I think it's best left alone.
Sales tax on everything.
Sales tax is paid when you buy something, and the business you purchased your goods from sends that money to the government. There are 2 types of sales tax: general sales tax and excise taxes. General sales tax is a tax levied on most goods you buy. Excise taxes are taxes levied only on certain items.
Most countries enact a value-added tax, or VAT, on goods or services purchased
Flat
within
VAT.
their borders. These taxes are collected from every person in the supply chain, from the distributors to the consumers. The United States is one of the few to use sales tax, which not only vary wildly from state to state, but are only enacted after a purchase has been made.
The state treasury depends on sales taxes to pay for road repairs, education, and medical care for children, seniors, and the poor.
They're also not listed in the initial price, which can leave foreign visitors and many Americans scratching their head as to why they're being charged more than the price on the product. Better or worse? You decide. It's certainly more confusing.
What's the advice then? If you're going to buy a big ticket item, where's the cheapest sales tax?
Well, you can go online and look at all the sales tax rates for different cities, and if you look at one dealership or one, Best Buy or something like that, you can find the different zip codes and look at the sales tax rates and just see how much that'll take off, and then take your family out for a nice night.
There you go.
Number 5.
Interesting. So you can shop around. So let's say you wanted to buy a car and the sales tax in your state was more than the sales tax in, let's say, Florida. You can then go to Florida and buy the car, but would you not then be liable to pay any kind of additional, fee once you brought the car into your home state? But then again, even if let's say you bought a car in another state, transporting it back might cost more than the sales tax that you may have paid. So it's quite a tricky one there.
5. Recite a pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America.
In many parts of the United States, school children, and adults in some settings, are expected to recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
Back then, in 1892, when it was written by Francis Bellamy, Bellamy was a Baptist minister, and in conjunction with a magazine called The Youth's Companion, he wrote this, at that time, 23-word Pledge of Allegiance.
This is an expression that they will be loyal to the USA, and is usually performed daily while looking at the nation's flag, which you will find hanging everywhere, by the way. This isn't something other countries do. They might salute or respect their flag and country, but to make school children recite an oath to the country? The pledge has been the subject of plenty of controversy within the US too, particularly since it mentions God. While some schools no longer require it, it remains a widespread practice.
Bottom line is,
so some schools have started
we all
phasing
look
it out.
different, sound different, but we are all on the same team.
Number 4, watch.
It's interesting that some schools have started to phase it out. Yeah, as I spoke about in the start of the video in the intro, like I can see the pros and the cons of it. Like, you know, it's great. You know, I think a bit of patriotism is always good, a bit of pride in one's country. But at the same time, if let's say you don't believe in God, right? But you then have to say that, you know, you do, because I think as mentioned, God is in the oath, in the pledge. I don't know, where do you guys stand on it? Are you for or against the Pledge of Allegiance?
Ads for prescription drugs. Aside from New Zealand, the United States is the only country in the world that advertises prescription drugs directly to consumers. Every day, Americans are bombarded with ads for prescription medications, featuring generic, pleasing imagery and a list of side effects longer than a flagpole.
Side effects may include upper respiratory infection, stuffy or runny nose, and sore throat and headache.
Many people, Americans included, are baffled by the practice, as doctors and not patients are meant to decide what drugs to prescribe. Proponents claim that advertising increases competition and lowers drug costs. Meanwhile, prescription drugs are typically far more expensive in the United States, as the U.S. doesn't regulate or negotiate drug prices.
Really?
Number 3,
like here in the UK, if you get a prescription from a doctor, it's usually capped at like £8.90. So that's about what, 10, 11 bucks? Like pretty much no matter what, unless it's some like really, 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 really cutting edge drug, something like that, then it might be a bit more. Like, for example, how much are blood pressure tablets? Like anyone who's watching this that takes blood pressure tablets quite regularly, like a Ramipril or amlodipine, how much do you pay for your pills? Because here you're looking at, for a box of 30 pills, £8.90.
Put months before days. Most of humanity marks calendar dates as being day first, then month, then year.
It's the date. Assuming the first two numbers are some big old space date, then you've got year, month, day. It's the other way around like it is in America.
Or else the opposite as year, month, then day. The reasoning is that you can go from the shortest value to the longest or vice versa. Yet the United States and parts of Canada eschew both these formats by putting the month first, then day, then year. The US has been using this format basically since its founding, although it has used the day first format interchangeably too. The exact reason why is debatable, but as far as practicality goes, it can be useful when filling out forms to know which month it is before which day or year. Number 2.
I used to get so confused when I used to read forums, like American forums. I used to read the bodybuilding Miss forum just for the banter, like the jokes on there. And yeah, like just seeing that when posts were made, I used to get so confused by the month being first. I was like, what's going on here?
Go bankrupt from healthcare. Medical costs are the cause of over 60% of all bankruptcies in the United States.
In 2017, 1/3 of the money raised on GoFundMe went towards medical campaigns.
Wow.
And the site raises $650 million a year for more than 250,000 medical campaigns.
Americans experience a variety of unexpected charges while getting much-needed care, from surprise bills to being charged for riding in an ambulance.
According to one study, 71% of all ambulance providers do not take the patient's insurance.
Why not? Why not?
That same study found that 79% of patients who took an ambulance could get a surprise bill, with an average total around $450.
No.
In some parts of the civilized world, even seeing a medical bill can be an uncommon occurrence. Healthcare worldwide tends to be much more regulated than it is in the US. It's either funded through taxes in a single-payer system or else through individual insurers who are more strictly monitored.
The thing that confuses me is that apparently the US spends more on its healthcare than, most other countries, yet we here in the UK have, the NHS. Is it true that if you call an ambulance, they perform a wallet biopsy, by which they open up your wallet and check if you have insurance, and that will then dictate whether they take you to a good hospital or like a less good hospital? Is that true? Someone told me that and I just could not believe it.
Other countries, they don't have this problem. Instead of every private insurance company negotiating with every healthcare provider, there's just this big list. Country, the central government, they go and they say, if you want to sell to us, to all of our people, then here's what you can charge for a checkup. Here's what you can charge for an MRI or a prescription for Lipitor.
Bottom line, while there can sometimes be extra charges, for most of the world, medical debt is basically unheard of, except in horror stories about the US.
Can't get a credit card. I can't buy a house. I don't see me ever being out of debt.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1, use the imperial measurement system.
Can you explain to me?
Yes.
How the country that can send men and hopefully women to the moon
and beyond.
Still are in gallons and inches.
To be fair, we still use pints here, so we can't really complain.
When the entire world is metric, I do not understand this.
There are 3 countries in the world that don't use the metric system: Myanmar, Liberia, and the United States. Objectively, metric is the less arbitrary measurement system since everything goes by tens. Even Britain and Commonwealth countries have converted.
The point is, the US system has always been a little more accessible than metric. Sure, stacking up 12 thumb widths to make a foot, that's still kind of weird, but it's not so weird that we're clamoring to change it.
Although admittedly, they do still use measurements like feet and inches casually.
So now I can't ask a distance when I visit another country. I'm like, how far is that? They're like, that's 500 kilometers. I'm not in the Olympics.
So why hasn't the US converted? We'll give you one guess. Did you say it's because of money? Because money is definitely a big factor.
Would it be because you have to change all of the signs and stuff that say 10 miles to this place, 20 miles to that place?
Converting to a whole new system of measurement is expensive. Other factors include a need for control and stability of the US. So, inertia, basically. Why change when you don't need to? And you know what your mom says? If all the other countries jumped off a bridge, would the US do it too? Or something like that.
That's so silly.
A 2015 Rasmussen poll asked Americans if we should switch to the metric system and adopt Celsius as our main temperature scale. 64% said no, while 21% said yes, and the remaining 15% was undecided. So it looks like we're perfectly fine with being different.
Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other...
That was a fun video. Very, very interesting. I think with the metric system, I believe it's one of those situations where, people just don't like change. Like, I get it, when you get comfortable with something, accustomed to it, it's been with you all your life, and then suddenly someone proposes changing it. Initially, there can be a little bit of fear, a little bit of rejection of that idea, but it genuinely is a lot simpler. A gram, 1,000 grams makes a kilogram, 1,000 kilograms makes a ton. 1,000 tons makes a megaton. It's just so much easier. A centimeter, a millimeter, centimeter, meter, kilometer, it's just way easier. Whereas if you're converting inches into feet and then, feet into miles, it's all like, because I think it's 12 inches are in a foot, but then how many feet make a mile? I just don't know. So I do think the metric system is the way to go. But then again, here for some reason, in a pub, you still get a pint. You don't ask for a litre of beer. You ask for a pint of beer. So it's a bit weird. But yeah, very, very, very interesting video. Let me know your thoughts, in the comments. I'm eager to read some interesting comments. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.